Recording. Okay, so we are going to start with a new topic again today. Like I said, I want to swing over to, I want to swing over to Canvas, publish both of those. So you'll see today that we are live and we're going to do a new lesson. It's titled 7-5 Day 1, Surface Area and Nets. So again, this whole unit we've been working on since spring break has been all about geometry. So you're going to take notes in your notebook to the best of your ability, and there are two Khan Academy lessons. One's titled Surface Area Using Nets, and the other one is called Find Surface Area by Adding Areas of Faces. So I will assign both of those as soon as the lesson is over. So can you see, someone just holler out, can you see my screen, the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So today is 7-5 Day 1. We kind of split this surface area up into 2 different days. Today it's more of a visual kind of a lesson where we look at drawings and we're counting and calculating area, and then tomorrow we're going to talk about a formula, which might make it a little simpler for some of you. So surface area and nets of rectangular prisms. So that's the shape we focus on, just the rectangular prism, which is, remember, a box. So some vocabulary that you can write in your notebook. The first is the definition of surface area, and it's literally exactly what it sounds like. It's the area of the surface, which is the same as saying the faces of a figure. Oftentimes when teachers try to explain surface area to students, they might say something like, how much wrapping paper would it take to cover the outside of a three-dimensional shape? So remember, we discussed that area itself is two-dimensional. This is surface area. So just what's the area of all of the faces or surfaces of the figure added together? And a net, which is the other definition today, are the surfaces from a three-dimensional figure that are laid out flat. So it's, imagine taking a cardboard box and cutting it so that you can lay it out flat and then looking at it from the top down. That's what a net is. And so a lot of times you can take nets and you can fold them up and decide, okay, what shape did this make? You can take a three-dimensional shape and unfold it and see what its net looked like. And while you're writing that, I'm going to go flip my lights on real quick. Hang on. It's dark in here today. I like having that window open behind me, but when you're sitting in front of a window with a camera on you, the glare from the window makes it hard to see, so hopefully that's a little bit better. Remember, if at any point during the lesson I go too fast or you didn't catch something or want me to repeat something, you'll have to unmute yourself because I can't see that chat in the corner while I have my lesson pulled up. Okay, so let's look at a rectangular prism and talk about its surface area. So when you're going to calculate the surface area, you are going to calculate the area of each of the faces. And on a rectangular prism, there are 6 of them. This is kind of the same thing as what we call the sides. So just imagine a box in your hand. There's a top, there's a bottom, there'd be a left and a right, and there'd be a front and a back. So a rectangular prism has 6 faces, and we can calculate the area of each of those faces. So when we look at this net here of this rectangular prism, and I realize the color coding isn't quite exactly the same, we got it as close as we could, but when we look at this net of the rectangular prism down here, you can see, okay, there's that top, here was the front, this would be the bottom, and this would be the back, and then the red would be the left and the right. And so we can calculate the area of each of these rectangles if we then know the dimension. Remember that to find the area of a rectangle, we multiply the length times the width. And so that's what you're going to see, and that's what we're going to do today. There are 6 of them, so you would calculate all 6 pieces and then add them together. And I also didn't bring a calculator, so I need to bring the one up on my phone. and change my setting. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's look at a few examples. We're going to do one example where we just find all the areas and add them up, and then we're going to do a couple more examples where you're going to actually watch me draw some nets. You can see that the net of a rectangular prism looks kind of like a T or a cross. That's because you take that front, top, back, and bottom sides and kind of lay them out together, and then you just kind of open up that left and right side almost like a wing. Also, surface area is measured in square units. So we've been working with volume for a while, and remember that volume, everything was cubed. And now we're going back to area, which is a two-dimensional type of measurement. And so we're back to saying square units. So feet squared, inches squared, and that sort of thing. So first we're going to look at an example of a net. This is a rectangular prism. It's already laid out and opened up for you. And we're just going to find the surface area of the prism by finding the areas of the different rectangles. So you can see that this shape is laid out with black rectangles, 2 dark gray, and 2 light gray. You'll also maybe notice there are some measurements here included, but not everything is labeled. So because not everything is labeled, we kind of have to piece together, if you're looking for a particular dimension, you might have to look around the figure other places on the picture and see, okay, where is that labeled and how long is that? Typically with a rectangular prism, not typically, there are only 3 measurements. Because remember, when you have a box folded up, there's a length, there's a width, and there's a height, and that's it. So you'll notice on this picture we've got a 12 in 2 places, we have 6s, and we have an 8. So there are those 3 dimensions. If we folded this box up, that would be the length, the width, and the height, and we could find the volume. So the area of the black rectangles, you can see this black rectangle over on the right hand side does have both dimensions labeled. This is 12 and this is 6. So if I'm going to find the area of the black rectangle, I'm going to do 12 times 6, and that is 72. There are 2 black rectangles, so you could write it again, 12 times 6, 72. So we have 2 black rectangles, and the area of both of those black rectangles is 72. Now we're going to look at the dark gray rectangles. These are the larger ones at the top and here in the middle. Remember, if we folded this up, this might be the top and the bottom, maybe the front and the back, just depending on how you're holding that rectangular prism. So if I look at this top box, or rectangle, excuse me, if I look at this top rectangle, I can see that this side here is labeled with a 12. Well, the problem though is that this isn't labeled. So now we have to look somewhere else in the picture. So I kind of move my eyes around a little bit and I see way down here this is labeled 8 inches. What that actually means is that all of these lines that are going horizontal through this picture would all be 8 inches. This is also 8 inches. So to find the area of the dark gray rectangle, we would do 8 times 12, and that is 96. Remember that there are 2 of them. So the area of each dark gray rectangle is 96 square inches, or 96 inches squared. And so again, remember that 8 comes from all of these would be 8. Every one of those lines all the way up and down would be 8 because it's a rectangular prism, and so in order for that to fold back up, that has to be the same dimension. Then we have the light gray rectangle. So you can see that we've got that light gray rectangle labeled down here with 8. We also have it labeled here with 6, so we know this is a 6 by 8. If you looked in this middle light gray rectangle, and you might say, okay, well those are 8, so I know the length, but I don't know this width. And you can see over here on the far right, there's that 6 inches. So this would be 6, and this would be 6, and this would be 6. So again, from the picture, you should be able to piece together all the dimensions of each of those rectangles, even though it might not be directly labeled. So again, this one is an 8 by 6, which is 48, and there are 2 of them. So remember, a rectangular prism, when laid out in its net, is composed of 6 rectangles from each of the faces from that rectangular prism. So now we want to find the total surface area. We're going to add all of that together. 72 plus 72 plus 96 plus 96 plus 48 plus 48. And now when we add all of that up, I'm going to grab my calculator.
360.
Ooh, somebody beat me to it.
360.
Nope, not 360. I got 432. Yeah, it's got to end in it. 432, and it's inches squared.
I do math too fast.
That's okay. So 72 plus 72, 96 and 96, and 48 and 48, all added together is 432 square inches, or inches squared. That's how you calculate when you don't have maybe a grid or a graph behind you, and that's what we're going to look at next. We're going to look at drawing these nets on a graph, on a grid, so that it's a little bit easier to find the area. But this is how you do it without that. Okay, so now we've got an image, a rectangular prism. You can see the length, width, and height are labeled in the image, and we're asked to draw and label the dimensions of the net on that grid. So when you're drawing a net, I typically work in 2 phases. I work with this, I'm going to call this the front and this the top, and I'm going to call this, let's see if I'm holding that, this would be just one of the sides. So there's the front, the top, and the side, and remember each of these faces that we can see has a partner. So the front, there's one in the back, the top has an identical rectangle on the bottom, and the side has an identical rectangle on the other side. When we draw these nets, I always like to draw them the same way. I typically will draw them exactly how this one is drawn. I'll have 4 going vertically, and off of the second, or this small gray rectangle, I'll put the 2 side pieces. That's how I always draw them, because then I feel like if I always draw them the exact same way, it's harder to mess it up. Because nets can be a little bit confusing. Sometimes it's hard to just visualize what you're doing with that box. How the heck do you lay this thing out flat and then get it so you can fold it up? So I'm going to start at the top. This top green rectangle is a 4 by 1. You might be asking where the 1 came from. Well, we look down here, right? This width here is 1. That means up here it's also 1. So I'm going to draw myself, and I kind of start in the middle towards the top of 4 by 1. And I'm going to label it. This is 4 and this is 1. So that's the green. Maybe I should do that in green. I wonder if this one might be helpful today. If I at least do this first one, I'm going to color code it a little bit. So green. It is, again, I think I moved it over to the right one, but that's okay. It's a 4 by 1. 4 by 1. So that takes care of the top. Now these pieces kind of go in order. So if you kind of work yourself around this figure, that was the top. Now I need to do the front. And the front is purple, and it is a 4, right? Remember, this is 4, so this is also 4. It's a 4 by 2. The height of this prism is 2 units, so it's a 4 by 2. And we want to make sure our 4s line up. Okay, I'm not going to do something like this. This doesn't make any sense to go this way, right? How does that fold up together? It's got to stay, the 4s stay in the same spot. So I went horizontally across with the 4, so I'm going to go horizontally across with the other 4. So again, and I'm going to label that a 2. And this is 4. Now I just repeat that. Those 2 rectangles are now going to repeat themselves. I had the top face, I have the front face. Now the bottom, which is identical to the top, looks like this. And again, it's a 4 by 1. So maybe I'll put the little 1 there off to the side. And then finally we have that back piece, which is identical to the front. So that's going to be another 4 by 2. And I'm going to move a couple of these numbers inside because I know that I'm getting ready to put the little side wings on. So then I have this pink side that's on the right, and there's also one back here on the left that you can't see. And you can put it two spots. You can put it here with this front face and kind of imagining it opening up. You know, if I put a little door handle here, imagine this opening up like a door so it would stay connected right here. Or you can imagine it staying connected up here and kind of swinging up, maybe like a garage door. I prefer it to go in that second spot. So let me change over to red. I prefer it to go next to this second rectangle. So this is a 2 by 1. So here's my 2, and then I'm going to go over to 1. It is a 2 by 1. And there it is. And I'm going to label that's a 1 and that's a 2. Now what's cool about doing these on a grid is you have the dimensions there in the boxes, right? I drew that top green one as a 4 by 1, so that means it's 4 times 1, or I can count those squares in there. Now you're asked to find the surface area. So to find the surface area, or to find the area of any shape when you have it drawn on a grid like this, you just count boxes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So the surface area is 28 units squared. Now again, as we draw some of these nets today, I know you don't have grid paper, but you can just draw it to the best of your ability. If you do some labeling, then that'll make it a little bit easier for you. And if you have to go back and look, so label those units. You'll see me do both, obviously drawing it on the grid, but then also labeling units for you. You could have gone through each one of those boxes, rectangles, and just calculated the area by doing length times width and then added them all up. But in my opinion, on most of these, it's a little bit easier to just count. So let's go on to the next one. Here we're told to draw and label the dimensions of the net of the cube shown, then find the surface area. So we talked last week that a cube is a rectangular prism. What's special about a cube is that all of the dimensions are the same. So as you look at this figure, you can see, well, wait a second, how come there's only one side length labeled? Well, that's because it's a cube. And when you have a cube, they're all 4 units, the length, the width, and the height, which means every one of those faces is a 4 by 4. And I'll label some of the other 4s on here. 4, 4, 4. These are all 4s. This is 4. This top one here is a 4. We got 4 back there, 4 here, 4. Let's see, how do I not mix those up? Let's do it this way. That's a 4, and this one down here in the back is a 4. They're all 4s. Oh, and I missed one here. 4. Right? So as I'm drawing this net, they're all 4 by 4s. And I want to stay with my pattern of 4 vertically and then the 2 side spots out on the wings, kind of. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a 4 by 4 and another 4 by 4. This one's a little harder to color code because that image has lots of colors on it. So I'm not going to color code this one. So there are my top, my front, my bottom, and my back. My eyes are kind of playing tricks on me as I look at this cube. I can see it 2 ways, and I kind of see maybe like this as being the front face right now. It's a little bit to the right. It's tilted to the right. I don't know if some of you are seeing it that way as well. When I look back at it, sometimes I see it going the other way. And then I want to draw those 2 wings off to the side of that second rectangle. And again, it's a 4 by 4. And so we could label, right? 4, this is 4, 4. You don't have to label everywhere. You just have to label enough places that you could tell what the dimensions were. And I appear to be going ahead and labeling everywhere. They're all 4 by 4s. 4, 4, 4, 4. Missed one over here. 4. Oh, missed one down here. 4, 4. Lots of 4s. So here, because it's a cube, we know the area of one of them. 4 times 4 is 16, and I could count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now I could keep counting or recognize that there are 6 faces on a rectangular prism, and it's a cube here, so they're all going to have the exact same area. They're all 4 by 4s. That means they're all going to have an area of 16. So this is 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, and 16. I could add all those 16s up, or even simpler. Yeah, how did you get that?
I just did 16 times 6.
Yeah, there we go. So you do 6 times 16 because, again, there are 6 faces and they're all identical. And 16 times 6, what did you say it was? 96?
86.
96. I think you forgot to carry. 96. 6 times 6 is 36.
Oh.
And we would say units squared because, again, we're on this net, on this grid, so we don't have like inches. We don't know if those are inches or centimeters or anything like that. Okay, so let's try one more. On this last one, I'm going to actually let you try to draw your own net and see just if you can draw the net based on the rectangular prism. So here we go. It is a 6 by 3 by 2. And again, I know you don't have the grid, but just see if you can get it drawn and possibly labeled correctly. And I'll give you a couple of minutes here to look at this. Whose dad is that? Is that Troy? Somebody wants breakfast. What do I want for breakfast? Is that what they're singing? Okay, so I know I didn't give you a whole lot of time, but I want to go ahead and start drawing this, and then you can head on over to Khan Academy. So I'm going to start with green. I'm going to start with this top face. It is a 3 by 6. So I'm going to go 6 across and 3 down. I'm going to switch over to purple because now I have this front face that is a 6 across by 2 in the height. Hang on one second. So 6 across and a 2 height. Whoops, I missed that one. Draw that one again. And then green, another 6 by 3 or 3 by 6. And then you're going to have another purple, right? This is that back side, a 2 by 6. And then I like to put those wings off to the side of that second rectangle, the purple one here, and this is a 2 by 3, and you can see right away where that 2 should line up. That 2 has to line up with the purple 2, so that means it will go 3 out and come 2 down. And now I'm going to label the area on the inside by just counting. So these are both 6s. If I count up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. These are both 18. And the purples are 6 by 2, which makes 12. And now we add all of these numbers up. So 18 plus 12 plus 18 plus 12 plus 6 plus 6 is a surface area. What'd you get this time, Ethan?
86.
Oh, I got 72. Let me try again, make sure I didn't mess up. 18, 18, 12, 12, 6, 6. Yeah, 72. 72 units squared. Okay, so that is surface area. Again, remember it's the sum of the areas of the faces of the figure all added together. And we also talked about today how to draw nets. You have 2 lessons on Khan Academy, so you can head over there now, or you can work on them a little bit later. But I will be available later today for questions if you have any. Remember that you need to be on the attendance sheet and make sure that you check in on attendance there. And if there aren't any questions, then we'll go ahead and take off. It's nice to see you today, Jessica. It's nice to see the other 3 of you too, but she's one we haven't seen as often, so. Okay, all right, take care, guys. Good luck, and let me know if you have any other questions.